Okay, so now what we're going to be doing is making the first build of the Chef Levain. And what I'd like you to notice is that it's just flour and water. There's no yeast whatsoever. So here we go. I'm going to start with the dry ingredients, the flour, and we're starting with 400 grams of the AP flour. There we go. And now an equal amount, 400 grams of the whole grain flour, like that. And now we add 2 grams of malt. And this is, there we go. This is basically a dried malt syrup, malted barley. There we go. You have to watch out, it absorbs moisture from the air and kind of cakes a bit, but it still works fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to whisk the dry ingredients together, and we always do. And now we're going to add 400 grams, 480 grams of water to it. And as usual, I'm using only distilled water. Distilled water is the water of choice. It's 480 grams. And now we mix for about a minute or so. We don't scale anymore. Now after you've mixed for about a minute, then you can add the salt. And that's 4 grams of salt mixed in after you start mixing for a minute or so. Okay, now what's happening is the water is suffusing through all the dry ingredients and moistening everything. And as soon as the dry ingredients touch the water, they start to mass together. At some point, you can't use the scraper anymore because it's not really doing much, so you've got to switch from the scraper to your hands. And what I do is I try to push everything together like this. Because the idea is to get it to one ball of dough. And everything should be incorporated in that ball of dough. It just takes a minute or so, but see how it's all coming together. Almost. Yeah, I can feel it's getting a little tackier. It's not sticky per se, but it's tacky enough to absorb all the really dry stuff that's left over. It's becoming one with the rest of the dough. Starter, I should say. All right, almost done. All right, here we go. All right, so this is the state you're looking for. This singular ball. Now the next step is to flatten it out a bit so that it becomes a disc that's about the same size as the bottom of your bowl, like that. Now, at this point, we're ready to put it to bed for 24 hours. And to do that, we get a clean bowl and we fill the bottom with this is basically cracked grain, and we'll show you how to mill that in a second. But in any event, you can also just get cracked wheat at your local health food store. You line the bottom with cracked wheat, like this. Then you take your disc and plop it down on top of the cracked grain. And then you cover it with the rest of cracked grain. The idea is you want to completely bury it in this cracked grain so that it's free from light and air, essentially, and it basically just has a chance to ferment on its own. Now what we're going to do is move it, put the tightly close it with the lid, and cracked grain, and we have a tight lid on it. We're going to move it over here to one of the warm places in the kitchen, which is right above my oven that has pilot lights, and it will rest there for 24 hours.